This chart tells all. Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here. And in today's video, recent Bitcoin history, the current state of the altcoin market, and the first Senate subcommittee hearing for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are going to tell us what we need to know about where Bitcoin is going to bottom out on this massive drop that we've been witnessing over the last month. By the end of this video, you're going to have a much better understanding of why Bitcoin's correcting, but more importantly, when it will stop and where the bottom is. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on into it. The question has been asked, when is Bitcoin finally going to stop falling? We've been going through a major correction ever since we hit $109,000 on Inauguration Day. We've recently dropped back down to sub $90,000. So when is Bitcoin going to actually hit the bottom? Well, we're going to go about this from three different angles. Number one, we're going to look at recent history on the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market. Number two, we're going to talk about the altcoin market and the impact of the non-existent altcoin season. And number three, we're going to be talking about Cynthia Lummis and the digital assets subcommittee that is being held right now on Capitol Hill and the impact that all this is having on the market so we can understand where we're heading next. Let's start with the chart. I have prepared this beautiful chart for us that is going to help explain to us exactly where Bitcoin is and exactly where the bottom is going to be. And no, there is not a single indicator or drawing on this chart that is not here for a reason. And the very first thing that we need to point out here with this chart is that Bitcoin is currently, as we speak, falling below the 20-weekly exponential moving average. Why is that important, you ask? Well, only because virtually every single major corrective movement that Bitcoin has witnessed in recent memory has began with a drop below the 20-weekly exponential moving average, as you can see on screen before you right now. In fact, it is such an important level of support that when we break it, some of the times that is our early warning sign that we are entering into a full-blown bear market. Before you get freaked out, no, we're not going into a bear market right now, but it does indicate that we're on the precipice of a larger drop. Likewise, we are currently falling below the 20 simple moving average, which is the center line of the Bollinger Bands. And similarly, basically every time in recent memory that Bitcoin has dropped below this level, we have also entered into a major correction as well. It is important to note that Bitcoin falling below the 20-weekly exponential moving average and the 20-weekly simple moving average indicates that there is virtually zero support beneath Bitcoin until you get back to the previous all-time high at $73,800. If we take a peek at the last 14 months of visible range volume profile, you can see that there is virtually zero support beneath $86,000 until you get back down to $73,000 because Bitcoin did almost no trading in that range. We spent 2 weeks between $73,800 and $86,000 and built no support. So if the floor does fall out and Bitcoin falls below the current bottom at $86,000, we're in free fall territory until the previous all-time high at $73,800 because there's virtually no support there at all. But the good news is there is support beneath us at $73,800. In fact, there are three different areas of support. The first one to mention is, of course, the previous all-time high, which this is where we're going to bring in our full chart. The previous all-time high sits here denoted by this blue line at $73,800 and makes up our first and most important level of support. Our second most important level of support here is the point of control on the volume profile. As you can see here, we've drawn a volume profile on our chart encompassing the last 14 months of price action, and our point of control, in other words, the area that the point of most trading has occurred, sits here at $66,700, a second important level of support. Furthermore, we've also got another beautiful level of support here in red, which is the 100-weekly simple moving average. This is basically a moving average of the last 2 years of price action. By the way, the last 2 years, the average price of Bitcoin is roughly $75,000, so take that, Peter Schiff. The 100-weekly simple moving average currently sits at $75,000, giving us a relative range for Bitcoin support right here between $67,000 and $75,000. As we draw in on this box over here, which is our ultimate price target for Bitcoin, both in time and space, these are helping to denote why we have drawn our point of highest likelihood that Bitcoin will drop to right here. For a fourth and bonus level of support, we also have the bottom of the Bollinger Bands coming up to meet us right here. They currently sit at $69,000. Let's talk practicality though. What would this drop look like to this range that we're talking about, and is it feasible? Well, when you consider the fact that a drop from the current all-time high at $109,000 down to $73,000 would be a 32% drop, that leaves us with one question. Has Bitcoin seen a 32% drop before during a bull market, and did the bull market have to end at that point in time? Well, I've taken the liberty of going onto our chart and showing you every single time that Bitcoin witnessed at least a 32% drop that did not lead to the conclusion of the bull market over the last 10 years. Starting back in 2015 to kick off the bull market, we witnessed a 37% drop in August of 2015. Following that, we saw a 40% drop in November December of 2015. Then we saw a 38% drop in July of 2016, a 35% drop in January of 2017, a 33% drop in March of 17, a 38% drop in July of 17, and a 40% drop in September of 17. For a grand total of 7 corrections during the 2016-17 bull market that were greater than the corrective movement that we're predicting right now. And notice not one of them ended the bull market. Fast forwarding to our previous bull market, which was the 2020 and 2021 bull market, we saw no fewer than 5 corrective movements larger than 32% on the way to $69,000. A 34% drop occurred within less than a month in July of 19. Then we saw a 40% corrective movement in September of 2019, then a 38% movement to the downside in November of 2019, and a 62.54% drop in the span of just a week in February of 2020 as COVID was ramping up. We then went on to see a 33% correction in January of 2021 within the same weekly candle. But those are previous bull markets, Jeb. What about this bull market? Well, interestingly enough, as you can see from this box right here, Bitcoin corrected exactly 33% during the last correction that we saw during the summer of last year. So would a 33% drop down to $73,800 make sense? Yes, it would. And would it necessarily end the bull market? Probably not. It would mean that Bitcoin would be healthy enough to continue the uptrend because in the previous bull markets, we have found that the number of drops greater than 30% increasing actually lengthens the bull market. In other words, when you have more corrections, you have a longer bull market because the bulls are healthier because they've taken time to rest. Now, last but not least, let's look at exactly how the drop occurred during the last cycle so that we can see how it might occur during this cycle. There is a very particular market structure that played out during this correction last summer. Bitcoin did a multitude of things all at once. The first thing it did is it dropped below the point of control for its market, which was sitting here at roughly $67,000. Then we dropped below the 20 simple moving average from the Bollinger Bands here on June 17th of 2024. Then just a little while later, on the 1st of July, 2024, we dropped below the 20 DEMA also. At that point in time, just a few weeks later, we would bottom out here at $49,600 on critical support at 50K. It's important to note that Bitcoin didn't just fall to any random level. It fell to a big even called $50,000. It didn't hover in midair. It dropped to a predefined level that we all could have seen coming. I also want to note that there were 2 major highs here before the correction occurred. 1, 2, and after that second high, when the correction actually began, there were about 42 days between the local high and the bottom of the first drop. Now, fast forward to our current market, and we can see that Bitcoin has already broken below all 3 of those levels. We have broken below the center line, the point of control on the limited range volume profile. We have broken beneath the 20 weekly simple and exponential moving averages, and we are currently 35 days past this second major high that Bitcoin witnessed during the sideways trading accumulation after the rally. What this entails is that Bitcoin is already most of the way through the correction down to the bottom, and if our current market rhymes with last summer's market, which would make the most sense since that's the most recent market structure that we're going off of, since we're looking at possibly a 33% correction down to $73,800, considering the fact that we had a Bybit hack, considering the fact that the stock market is tumbling, considering the fact that we've got all kinds of FUD in the space right now, a lot of paper hands, a lot of exchanges deleveraging, it makes sense that Bitcoin is probably not going to hover here in the middle of thin air at $82,000. It stands to reason that Bitcoin is probably going to fall back down to the exact same levels of support that it did during the last cycle, and that we do in almost every single correction in Bitcoin's history. If you go back to the first video on this channel, we talked about how Bitcoin bounces off of the 100 daily simple moving average. It is basically a rule of Bitcoin technical analysis that during bull markets, Bitcoin will retrace eventually to the 100 daily simple moving average. That moving average currently stands at $75,000. If we fall within $2,000 to $3,000 of it, we'll call that a bounce. That gives us a range down around $70,000. And so we arrive at our target, both a price and a time target. We are expecting that Bitcoin is probably going to come in and fill this box right here. Specifically, we think that Bitcoin is going to come and fill this box somewhere, and somewhere in this box will be the bottom for Bitcoin. More specifically, it's possible that Bitcoin will fill this box if we were to actually get very specific on where we think Bitcoin is going to go. These 2 boxes are defined by a high at roughly $75,000, just shy above the 100 daily simple moving average, and a bottom down here at $67,000, and they are partitioned on the side by about March 24th to about April the 7th. Based on the timing of recent markets, we would expect for Bitcoin Bitcoin to be bottoming out at some point within the next 2 to 4 weeks, more likely even within the next week to 2 weeks, and we would expect it to be bottoming out about 10% lower than we are now. That is as a result of the fact that once we actually broke through all 3 of these levels, the visible range, point of control, the 20 WSMA, and the 20 WEMA, we dropped roughly 10 to 15%. If we were to drop roughly another 10 to 15% from where we are right now, we would probably drop to about $78,000 to about $73,000. On the very low range, we're looking at a $67,000 Bitcoin. On the higher range, we're looking at a $78,000 to an $80,000 Bitcoin, likely within the next 2 to 4 weeks, bracketed by the highest probability being that Bitcoin will backtest the previous all-time high at 73.8. Now, let's briefly talk about why the altcoins are going through a major correction, because it is a part of this story. Altcoins are getting eviscerated right now, and it has everything to do with this chart, fear and greed. Whenever people are afraid of Bitcoin, they are naturally going to be afraid of the altcoins because the altcoins are less trustworthy than Bitcoin. Let's just say you have 2 friends. You have 2 friends. One of them decides to go and do something untrustworthy. Let's let your imagination run. Let's say they go and do something untrustworthy. You define what that means. But it was the more trustworthy friend that did that. What does that make you feel about your less trustworthy friend? Like, the guy that I never thought he would do that, did that. The guy that I don't really know how he's going to act, what's he going to do? This is why people get so hurt when the pastors screw up and when people that like their parents mess up. It's like, if I can't trust you, who can I trust, right? And so it's the same thing in altcoins right now. The fear and greed is so far in the fear direction. People are so fearful about Bitcoin right now that they are even more fearful about the altcoins, which is why over the last 7 days, Bitcoin is down 9.8%. And the next most quote unquote trusted altcoin based on its market cap, Ethereum, is down 12%. Going further down, XRP is down 15%. Solana's down 20%. Dogecoin's down 20%. Cardano's down 14%. These altcoins are going through major corrections for 2 reasons. Number one, Bitcoin is going through a big correction and people trust Bitcoin more than the alt. So if they can't trust the Bitcoin market, then they can't trust the altcoin market. But number 2, people are getting real tired of waiting for altcoin season that doesn't seem to be coming. Is it going to come? Yes. When is it going to come? After Bitcoin breaks above $109,000 and goes on a big run up to 150 to 175 sometime later this year. Why do I bring up the altcoins? Because you're getting some great investment opportunities right now if you're willing to hold them for 5 years in case this bull market did for some reason conclude early. If you're willing to hold an altcoin for 5 years and wait till the next bull market, just on the off chance that something does go wrong, you've got some great opportunities right now. I mean, guys, Solana's trading at 135 bucks, Cardano's sitting at 66 cents, XRP at 221, BNB at 614. These were high prices 6 months ago, but today they are 30 or 40% corrections from their all-time highs, which give you an entry opportunity if you decide to take it. Be careful with any entries that you decide to take, because obviously there's always a chance that the bull market did just end. I don't think it did, but there's always a chance that it did. It'd be very strange if it did, but it could possibly happen. So you want to make sure that you are holding assets that you're willing to hold for a very long time, because sometimes an asset goes belly up and all you can do is just hold it until it turns profitable, and eventually it will if you bought the right asset. So make sure you're being very careful. Stick with the higher cap altcoins that are much more proven. Pick a good dog that is proven over a quote unquote great dog that you've never seen run before. All right, last thing we need to talk about is Cynthia Lummis. If you guys don't know, she is the senator from Wyoming that has been pushing for an SBR, Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. And today that I'm recording this, the day before you're seeing this, she is about to chair the first digital asset hearing today on Wednesday. This is a huge deal because this is the first time that she will be assuming her role as the chair of the newly established Digital Asset Subcommittee under the Senate Banking Committee. Points of discussion in this meeting will involve cryptocurrency regulation, bringing down barriers to entry for both consumers and companies in the cryptocurrency space, regulatory clarity, and of course, the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. This is a really big deal because it is this subcommittee that will be pushing for an SBR, and this is their first meeting. So we shall see how this plays out. And on today's episode of Coffee and Crypto, which you're seeing, which probably went up a couple of hours ago from when you're watching this, we probably just talked about how it went. So make sure to go back and watch that. Needless to say, this is a big deal because Cynthia Lummis and this subcommittee are going to be the individuals that will be likely pushing for bipartisan cryptocurrency legislation, especially a Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. And I'd love to see it happen soon. I'd love to see the United States be able to dollar cost average into Bitcoin at a lower level like $86,000 than at $109,000 or $120,000. These are our tax dollars at work. I hope they get a good entry. And one final note before we wrap it out is that this is probably one of the last great opportunities to buy Bitcoin before the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve goes online. We will likely be seeing at least one, if not over a dozen states approving a Strategic Bitcoin Reserve on the state level over the next several weeks and months, and the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve at the national level may be coming online within the next year. This may be the last time you get to see these levels before an SBR comes online, and even though short-term technicals are looking bearish, long-term, the amount of Bitcoin sitting on over-the-counter markets is at an all-time low, which means that with all of these companies, countries, states, and the like trying to buy Bitcoin, eventually the supply is going to dry up, a shock's going to occur, they're going to start buying on the open market, and the price is going to go absolutely nuts. So it's time to begin acquiring assets that you believe in. If you don't believe in them, don't touch them with a 10-foot pole. But if you believe like I do that Bitcoin is the future, then now's a good time to put your money where your mouth is. But speaking of putting your money where your mouth is, if you say you believe in decentralization, if you say you believe in security, and you say you believe in things like Bitcoin, then what I say to that is that you probably have some. You probably have some wealth in Bitcoin, and if you do, you need to protect it. As we often say, risk mitigation is the most important part of wealth building, even more important than reward maximization, because you can grow a little bit slower, but not getting wiped out is very important. As I tell my children, the first rule of being alive is not to die, right? And so the first rule of maintaining a cryptocurrency portfolio is not losing all of it to a hacker or a thief. That is why NordVPN has brought us a deal. If you go to nordvpn.com/Jeb, you can get the entirety of NordVPN standard plan here for $93.36 for 28 months. That is a phenomenal deal because NordVPN is going to help keep you safe, private, and protected from cyber criminals as you browse online by encrypting your internet traffic and sending it through their secure servers. Every time you go online, your information is getting all over the internet, being sold to data brokers who turn around and sell it to the highest bidder. Most of the time, those highest bidders are thieves. And make no mistake, NordVPN is not just a VPN. They've also got anti-malware tools, which are very important, so you don't have that pop-up come up on your screen that's got like 15,000 different advertisements. Did you know you were the 100 billionth user of Google? So you, my friend, are entitled to a $7 trillion gift card from www.com. NordVPN protects you from nonsense like that. It's also a great present for your grandmother, right? If your grandma is using a computer, it's a good thing to put that on there because she might think to herself, oh my gosh, I can go to and get $7 billion. I'll do that right now. I'll click that button, right? Who knows somebody who's done that because they don't know how the internet works? But it's not just that. NordVPN is also going to give you access to something called a dark web monitor. They're continually scanning the dark web and instantly alerting you if criminals have gotten access to any of your credentials. Wow. NordVPN is protecting you, keeping you safe, and also telling you if any of your information gets out there. Mind-blowing stuff. This is not just a VPN, guys. This is an entire cybersecurity package that you can get access to for like $3.50 a month. For 10 cents a day, you can feed a puppy in. No, for 10 cents a day, you can protect your everything online. If you've not already signed up for NordVPN, then I really don't know what you're waiting on. For $3.50 a month, you're going to be able to protect your portfolio of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in crypto. If you've got more than a couple $100 in crypto, then why aren't you spending a couple of bucks on protecting that investment, along with everything else you've got going on online? Make sure to sign up for NordVPN by going to nordvpn.com/Jeb, and thank you to them for being one of the sponsors of our channel. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and before I go, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.